welcome to Can Do Conversations. I am Cheryl Williams, the Can Do Mom.
I'm CJ Williams, the Can Do Dad. Thank you for being here.
Welcome, guys, and thank you for joining in on another conversation.
Grab those chairs, pull them in.
Have a cup to drink. Cheers to you guys, and let's go. So today's conversation that we've been talking about, it's still relatively the new year.
Sure is.
Statistics say by this time, most people have fallen off track of what their New Year's resolutions were. And that's why we don't do resolutions. Yep. That's not something that we work on.
They stopped going to the gym.
And so, for where are you at, right? Did you have something planned for
Did you have a vision?
2024, a vision of where you're wanting to go, goals that you are going to be working on? How are we doing, right?
Did you even have a plan for your goals?
Right.
Or you just wrote some things down and didn't have a plan for it?
Yeah. And so we're very big on constantly communicating, right? That's why we call this Can Do Conversations, because we're having conversations all the time. We're like, you know what? Why don't we put a camera on this and have these conversations, right? And so we're always having conversations. And one of the conversations that we have all the time is, where are we going? What are we doing? How are we? What's the vision? Where are we working towards? And what are we working on?
Then we work backwards on how to get there.
And then put that together. And so you've got to have a vision big enough so that way when the new year is not so new anymore and the routine gets a little mundane and monotonous. You might not be getting the results that you were wanting to get as quickly as you thought you might get them.
So then you just stopped right away.
Right. And so bringing this back to us, it's like we are constantly talking. We know where we're wanting to go this year.
Right. Or every quarter.
And then we back it up and say, okay, over this next 90 days, what are we needing to do? And then we have our targets that we work out for each week of what do we need to do to be able to get to that end result at the end of the 90 days. And then we do it again. And then we do it again. So 4 times throughout the year, we have like these many years in there, right?
4 years.
And so we're working on what we need to be doing because our vision and we both are on the same page as to where we're going. And we see a lot of couples and families, they're not on the same page. They barely communicate.
Nope, it's the one person saying, I'm going to go do this, and
or
not even asking their husband or wife, what their plan is, or
what
let's
are we
do
doing?
It together.
How are we growing as a family? How are we evolving as a couple? How are we, expanding and going for more? And so if you're not having those conversations, not just at the end of the year, but throughout the year,
you're hurting the relationship.
Right. And you're not living your full potential of what you can be doing in the relationship together, separately, as a family, it just goes on. And so
end times change. Even if you did have that communication and you had, you were thinking about the same thing in one quarter, it can change the next quarter. And you're already going on a separate path without telling your girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife that, hey, I'm on a different path now. Yeah. And they just noticed you doing something differently, but it's not together anymore. And
communication. It all comes down to communication. And the more that you can communicate, I don't think you can ever...
Because they might come with you.
Right.
Well, as long as you can explain why you're doing it this way.
And a lot of times it's like, there's not enough communication. I don't think you can ever over communicate or talk about this is where we're going. And because when life happens, sometimes you can lose sight of the vision, or we can lose sight of where we're going. And so when we have those regular check-ins on a weekly basis, hey, how are we doing? Did we accomplish? Did we get our targets this week? Do we know? Okay, do we need to tweak some things?
Right. Do you need to go back to anything?
Do we need to work on some stuff? Like when you take a status of where you're at, how you're doing, where you're going, then it doesn't go so far out before it comes back.
And then you can offer your help also. Do you need help in this since it didn't work out the week before or the month before?
Or how can I support you with this? Or, how can we do this together? Or, how...
Do we need to tweak something?
What do we need to change? Or what needs to happen differently this week to get a different result? And so these are, but again, like if you don't have a vision or a plan or a purpose as to where you're going as a family, as a couple, as an individual, together, as a whole, and you're not constantly, checking in with the other person and saying, hey, these are the things I'm working on. And that's why we do our weekly planning meetings, because you can have the big vision, but there's steps that you have to take to get there or move on. And maybe it is 5 years, maybe it's 10
Maybe it's
years,
1 year.
however far out it is, that doesn't really matter.
Long as
What
you work
matters
backwards.
is the here and now. And so if you're not having that communication amongst yourselves and together, you're going to be going nowhere fast, or you're going to derail and not even know that you're off track, or there's going to be a fork in the road and you're going this way and they're going that way because you didn't communicate.
Right.
You're no longer going at it together. You're not working on the same vision anymore. And things do change. The closer you get to something,
Yes.
the
more
more
precise.
specific we've got to be, right? And so if it's further out, we can be more ambiguous. But as it gets
Right.
closer, we're like, oh, okay, we need to do more of this, or hey, we want to do more of that. And so we have to tweak it and fine tune it.
Well, when you look at your goal and your big plan, that's good to have, but it's nothing without a plan to get there.
An action.
In action, your steps, because you can always look for it and say, hey, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. And then the next day, the next month, we still have that dream or that goal, but you're not any closer because you didn't take any action steps at all to figure it out or even do it.
And that's why we talk about the Candid family. The motto that we always have is talk. Because
Yes.
you got to talk about things,
Then you
then
have to plan
plan.
it.
You got to put together your plan. But the
then
most
you gotta take
important
those
of it is
action
you've got to
steps.
take the action consistently, right?
Yes.
And so many people talk about it. But they don't be about it. They don't do, right? We got to get into
No
the
action.
doing, the action,
Yes.
the actual work part,
A little
right?
kick in the butt.
It's easy to talk about it. It's easy to say, well, this is what I'm going to do, and you got to put together a plan. But the day in and day out, when it becomes the same old same each and every day, and the newness wears off, and it's not where everything is so shiny and everyone's, ooh, this is exciting, and motivation's
Yes.
gone, and you still are doing the same thing day in and day out because, one, you committed to doing that. Two, you said it's where you wanted to go. And three, you have an end result that you're going after. But so many people just let it go. That's why at this time of year, people have already chucked what they said they're going to do. And they're like,
they're all
I'll
done.
get to it again next year. Well, they said
Yep.
the same thing the year before and the year before and
5
the year
years
before and
in
the
a
year
row.
before, right? And so it's a pattern that keeps repeating itself.
Yeah,
and so
it's a pattern interrupt. You have to stop it. It's just like buying a plane ticket to somewhere. You know, it's just like saying we're going to go on a trip without buying the ticket. How are you going to get there?
right.
Right. And then when you finally figure it out and talk about it, again, it's the week before, and then you can't afford the tickets because it's too close.
Right. Or, you're going to have a staycation instead.
Right.
That vacation
At
turned
home.
into a
Yeah, yeah,
staycation because you didn't plan for it.
Let's order in, babe.
So it's like, again, you've got to have the conversation.
Yes.
You've got to figure out. And maybe you're someone who you don't know. You guys don't know. You don't have those conversations of what you want. Then it's time to start having them. It's time to start
Just open
and
up.
it's start expanding what is possible and
Yes.
thinking about where do you want to go and
Right.
set big goals. Put together big plans. Aim
Well, it's just asking.
for big things, but then be okay with having to go at it, chip it away at it, one day at a time, one step at a time, one action at a time to get you a little bit closer to get there.
Right.
So many people now want this instant gratification, instant everything. It's like,
Because that's all they see
Well,
on social media.
that's 'cause they're
And
told.
they feel closer to it.
but it's also the
But nothing
society
happens.
and the
Yeah.
culture that we've
And the
created.
fakeness.
It's like everything is just here now. And it's
Yes.
like, no, there's
No.
work behind the scenes. There's work
Yes.
that continues to go into this. There's work behind that has to happen. And a lot of times, what you see or what's presented is not really what it is.
No.
And so you do have to put in the consistent work. You do have to work on yourself. You do have to get better. You do have to commit to it. And when it gets hard and you don't want to do it and it's,
Yes.
the day doesn't go as planned or
Don't hit that snooze button.
you get up and continue to do it the next day and the next day and the next day because you made a commitment to yourself and to your family
Right.
as to this is what you're going to do.
And you'll feel better also for doing it. It'll get you closer to where you want to go.
And that's the high that
Just
you
do
ride,
the steps.
right? That you know that you're making a commitment and you're keeping the commitments that you made to yourself and to your family. And so because of that, you're wanting to continue to do that over and over and over again
No
because
matter how
you
long
know
it
where you're
takes.
going.
no matter how long it takes.
And that's what we've done. I mean, our
small steps.
Our
first.
plans have changed. They've changed a lot. Our
100
vision, our
times.
ultimate vision of where we want to go, we're always changing it and tweaking it, but we're not stopping. We're continuing
No.
to move. And then if you're down the road a little ways, you're like, you know what? I don't really want that anymore. Okay, great. So then
Or I
what
wanna
do
go
we
to that
want now?
place. Yeah,
Right,
no.
you just change it. Like, that's not the end destination
No,
we want
I'm not
anymore.
going there.
It's time to pivot and go over here. And so while you're going down the path, that's when you can start
Yes.
changing and tweaking and saying, you know, I want more of this, I want less of that, I don't want that
And
at all.
nothing's wrong with
No.
doing a pivot. That's going to happen automatically.
We've pivoted plenty.
It's going to happen. So when you're making those plans, realize that, you know, you're going to make a pivot. You're going to make a detour to get you where you want to go. And then by the time you get halfway there, you might not even want to go there anymore because you changed your mind. So the detour is going to take you somewhere else, but somewhere you want to go together because you discussed it and had a conversation about it.
And as you grow and change and evolve, what you want grows and changes and evolves as well. And so it's okay to say, you know, I don't want that anymore. But you have to voice that. You have to have that conversation and say, you know what? No. And then a lot of times
Right.
it's like, oh, I didn't want that either. Well, great. But
Yes.
if we just kept going, right?
And living life
because we
and-
didn't want to create,
working.
we didn't want to be honest with the person
Yes.
or open with the person,
Right.
or we
If
thought
they
they'd get
felt
upset,
scared.
or it's
Yes.
like, again, you've
Don't.
got to express how you're feeling and what you're wanting, and then it's up to the other person to do the same.
Right. And the conversations, you're going to have it. It's not going to be heated because it's a plan you had together. Just, you know, if you want something a little different, just explain it.
Yeah.
Or ask, do you still want to do that? Nothing's wrong, nothing's wrong with just asking that. Do you still want to go here at this certain time? Do you still want to do this in our future? Do you still even want to do that? And they'll either say yes or no.
And you don't ask if they want to do it if you no longer want to do it, right?
Right.
So you say, look,
You need
hey,
to figure it out.
I've kind of changed. I'm not really wanting this anymore. How about you, right? Or this is where I'm seeing things go. How are you feeling
Right.
with this? Or
And the
so
reason, have a reason why that you feel differently.
right, and you have to evaluate yourself too and say, okay, am I wanting to change this because it's getting hard, right? And it's getting difficult, so I don't want this anymore? Or am I wanting to change it because I'm wanting to go after something even more challenging?
That's
or
a
I'm
big
wanting to
one.
go in a different direction?
That's a big one right
because
there.
you have to look at that.
That fear, put the fear on your shoulders
And the weight. It's like,
and the weight.
This is actually harder than I thought it was going to be. This is not exactly what I thought it was going to
Yeah.
be. And so because of that, you're like, no, I'm not going to do it anymore. Versus, no, I actually do want to do this. I know it's
Yes.
hard, and I'm going to still continue doing it.
Just take smaller steps to get there to figure it out.
So you have to
You're
know.
going to stumble.
Because a lot of times people have a cop out. It's like, oh, I don't want that anymore. It's like, no, you still wanted it. It was just too much work that you didn't want to put in the effort.
There it is.
And so be honest with yourself. Don't bullshit yourself. You know,
Yes,
you know the
look in the
truth.
mirror.
You know the truth, right? Do you really want to do it anymore? Or is this something that you still want to do and it's getting it's a challenge? So you
Right.
figure out
So
how
you
to
don't know
overcome
how.
that.
So figure out how.
How are we going to
You might
overcome
need
it?
some help.
Maybe you
Yes.
need some guidance. Maybe you need to, talk to someone who's been there, or get a coach, or get a mentor, or ask for help or assistance. Or there's all
Yes.
kinds of different ways to do this. You don't have to go it alone, but you do have to be honest with yourself. You do have to have an open dialogue. You do have to have communication and conversation and action, right?
Be able to express yourself.
And not just keep it down and festered and let it bubble and boil,
Right.
and then it explodes, right? You become a
because you're gonna
volcano.
be, every other day you're going to go, nothing.
No. No. I'm
Maybe
good.
after dinner.
Yeah. And then after a while, you just don't
It's just-
anymore.
it
And then
stops.
you're not living anymore either. You've stopped
No.
living because you've stuffed what you really want down. And
Yeah.
there's so many people that are going through life that aren't living life anymore.
They just stop.
They've just settled for what it is. It got
Mm-hmm.
too hard. It got too complicated. They didn't want to deal with it anymore. Don't let that be you, right? And
Don't.
so don't be bitter and
Please
upset.
don't.
And just have the conversation. And if the
And it's
other
okay.
person that you're having a conversation with doesn't take it well, that's on them.
right.
That's not
it's
on
their
you.
challenge. You were honest.
You express, you be open, you be honest, you be vulnerable, you be truthful to where you're wanting to go, how you're feeling, what you're doing. And it's up to the other person to, one, respect that. And
Yes.
two, if they start getting a hair up their butt about it, that's on them. That's not on you. Then
Nope.
they're going to have to work on that themselves. So that's a lot of
Bingo
people are like, I don't want
bongo.
them to feel this way. I don't want them to think, I don't want them to be upset. It's
No.
like, you are not responsible
They're their
for
own
how
person.
they act or react. You're responsible for telling the truth. You're responsible for honesty. You're
Yes.
responsible for doing the things that you know you need to do and
Mm-hmm.
being truthful in that.
And then life is going to be easier once that is discussed because it's not eating you up inside.
And so you're not
because
cranky.
it's going to eat you up.
And irritable and,
Right.
you know,
Nobody wants to be around you anymore.
just not a nice person to be
no.
around because you're upset
that's gonna happen.
and you're angry and you're frustrated and you're all of these things.
Just because you couldn't express yourself.
Right, and we're speaking from experience, right? We've had times it's like, okay, well, we're doing this, but why am I really doing it? And so you get a little pissy, and it's like, okay, you're not having a good day, and a not good day turns into a not great week, and it's like, okay. And so after a while, you gotta just like, look, the more
Look.
we can just talk about this and be open and honest and communicate, the better it's gonna be. Because then we have a better relationship together.
Yep.
We have a better relationship with the kids. We have a better energy in the household as a family. We're able to get back on the same page and keep rowing the boat. Because if one person's rowing one way and another
going in
person's
a
rowing
circle.
another way, you're just going
Going
round and round in
around and
circles,
round and
and you're gonna get seasick after a while because just it's like that spinny ride at the amusement park. You're like, "Ugh," and then you try
Or
to
the
get
teacup.
off and you just fall. What's that ride where you like? I think it was like a carnival rides where you got in. It was like a flying saucer looking thing, and you got in. You put yourself
You
against
stand,
the
lean
wall,
out. Oh,
and as
yeah.
soon as it started going, it like stuck you to the wall.
I love it.
Whew! I got sick on that thing.
Those are
That was
scary.
That's not good.
And you're leaning for it. Ugh.
And it kept pulling you back. Yeah. So
It's like sports cars.
don't do that
Same
in
thing.
life. Don't get on the ride and keep going
And
in
it's already
circles
going.
and wonder why you're sick and why you have a headache and why you don't feel good and why
then
you
you're
can't
not gonna
walk straight
or eat right.
and it just becomes a spiraling. It just spirals
Then
out
all
of
the
control.
grays come.
I think they come regardless.
Yeah,
Yes.
they come quicker.
They come with wisdom. That's what we're gonna say. Okay, guys,
Awesome.
we enjoy.
thanks for listening.
Having you a part of the conversation.
Yes,
we
or
love
watching.
We love hearing from you guys, and
Yes, we
all
do.
your little takeaways and
Yes, share
your
even more.
conversations that you're having. And so talk to us. We want you to
love
continue the
hearing from you.
conversation. We want to see what other conversations would you like us to help you
Yes,
with.
reach out.
because
Type
we're
me type.
conversating. You can be conversating, and we can continue the conversation together.
Yes.
And that's what Can Do Conversations is all about.
Yep.
So we love you guys. We'll talk to you guys soon. And remember, we can do it. So can you.
can you.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.